Hello students, let us start today's session breathing and exchange of gases with some of the questions as usual. What is tidal volume and what is the value of it? Volume of the air inspired or expired during normal respiration is called tidal volume, and value of this tidal volume is 500 ml is the tidal volume, TV it is called as. Okay. What is the formula of the vital capacity VC? VC vital capacity formula, what is, tell me what? VC is equal to IRV plus ERV plus RV is a vital capacity formula. Right or wrong? Next, partial pressure of oxygen in the oxygenated blood is how much? Please tell me. PO2 is 95 mmHg in the oxygenated blood, that is exchanged between tissues which is having 40 mmHg of oxygen. Okay. Carbon dioxide is dash times higher soluble than oxygen, 20 to 25 times it is more soluble compared to oxygen. Very few some of the questions we have taken it, and hope you are revising the things properly, and as we revise it gets registered in the brain. Let us take today's aspect, and what is that? Transport of oxygen in the blood. Let us see. I will take it later here, this part, but you concentrate here. When I take regarding oxygen transport, it is transported in two ways. One is by blood plasma and second is by red blood cell. 3% is by blood plasma in the dissolved state and 97% in the RBC. With this idea, let us move to that. So, transport of oxygen in the blood, 93% of the oxygen is transported to blood plasma in the dissolved form, and I told you solubility of the oxygen is less in the blood plasma, so it is a less percentage. Next, in RBC, oxygen is transported from alveolar capillary to the tissue capillary, nearly 97% is transported in the form of oxyhemoglobin. And what is that? See here, let me explain that. This is a protein structure called globulin. It is a tertiary structure, you know it. One more globulin. These two globulin, when they interact, it forms quaternary structure, if you remember. One more globulin it is, and one more globulin. How many globulins you see? 4 globulins we can see. I will write it here. It is a globulin, and globulin is a protein in nature. It is a protein made up of amino acids. Okay. Center of this globulin, here there is a presence of ferrous molecule, a iron molecule in the second oxidation state, Fe2 plus, Fe2 plus, Fe2 plus, Fe2 plus. Clear? And this is surrounded by an organic molecule actually. So, I will write that in a different ink, organic molecule. Now, this portion which contains ferrous covered by organic molecule is called as heme. Heme plus globin together called as hemoglobin. Hemoglobin. In biomolecules you have studied, heme is an organic molecule. Yes, it is an organic molecule. Heme is an organic molecule. but it contains inorganic chemical called as iron in the ferrous stage. FeRS, ferrous stage, Fe2 plus. Fe2 plus. Is the matter clear? How many of the iron molecules are present here? Yes, there are 4. That is the reason. Oxygen, let me take one more here, oxygen. This oxygen can combine here, can bind here, can bind here, can bind here. You tell me here, that means one hemoglobin can carry how many oxygen? It can carry 4 oxygen. Please remember, that is the reason we tell here. See the equation from here onwards. 4 oxygen molecule, okay, 4 oxygen molecule binds the Hb. Hb is a simple way of telling regarding hemoglobin. We tell you say Hb. Hb count you might have heard about. The 4 oxygen molecule combined with the Hb means hemoglobin to form the structure which contains Hb, 4 molecules of oxygen called as oxyhemoglobin. Oxyhemoglobin. And this happens in alveolar capillary, right, where it is called association. And what does that mean, association? Where these two gets combined, they get combined. But in the tissue region, the oxygen has to be given to tissue. So it gets dissociated. That means it can take the oxygen, it can give the oxygen. That is the reason we tell the oxyhemoglobin molecule which is formed, it can be reversible. It's a reversible process. Clear? That means binding of the oxygen to hemoglobin is reversible or reversible. It's a reversible process. Is the matter very clear to you? Okay. Hope it is very clear. Quickly to tell you, 3% of the oxygen is moving or transported in dissolved state, and 97% of the oxygen is transported in the form of oxyhemoglobin, where oxygen is taken in the alveoli region, given in the tissue region. Please remember. Hope the matter clear. Hope you are writing along with me. Now we are into a next concept. And what is that? It's called oxygen dissociation curve. And what is that? All of you see here. Let me go for that, but after drawing. I am drawing a graph here. In the graph, x-axis, y-axis. In the x-axis, we will be taking the partial pressure of oxygen is taken in the x-axis. How much the value? 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, like this. In mmHg, millimeter mercury. What about here? Let us see here. Here we take percentage saturation, the percentage saturation of oxygen with the Hb. What's Hb? Hemoglobin is taken in the y-axis. Is the matter clear? Now listen all of here. As the partial pressure of the oxygen increases, percentage of saturation of the hemoglobin with the oxygen also increases. Means as the PO2 is increasing, binding of the oxygen to the hemoglobin is also increasing. So it is increasing. But after certain partial pressure, it becomes constant. That is the reason it forms a graph of this shape. Which shape? Sigmoid shape. I forgot to tell you the values here, students. The values are here 20%, 40, 60, 80, I can take 100 here. Now, it is very important. Let me just little bit modify the graph. Reason, it can never become 100. Why? It can become 97% as we told. That means, let us almost keep it here to make it constant, because we know the concept, right. So, it becomes what shape? Tell me. It becomes sigmoid shape. Hope the matter is very clear regarding this. So, what is the meaning of oxygen dissociation curve then? It is a sigmoid curve, means S shaped curve obtained when percentage saturation of what? Of the hemoglobin is the percentage saturation of the hemoglobin. Let me continue the definition there. Some incomplete words are there. The sigmoid curve obtained when percentage saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen is plotted against partial pressure of oxygen, then it is called as oxygen dissociation curve, ODC. Shall I define once again? It is a sigmoid curve obtained when percentage saturation of the hemoglobin with the oxygen is plotted against partial pressure of the oxygen. Okay. And what shape? Sigmoid curve. Okay. This point I will take it little later, because I need to explain some of the things now. What is that? See here. So, what is the shape of it? Tell me. Sigmoid shape, and maximum can be how much percentage? I told 97%. Okay. If this graph called as oxygen dissociation curve, if it is bending down, if it is bending down, it is called as shift to what side? Right side. Shift to right side. And how? You remain in front of the graph, shift to right side, shift to left side. Similarly, if a graph is moving towards the y-axis, moving towards the y-axis, then we call it as shift to left. Shift to left, shift to right. Is the matter very clear? Shift to right, shift to left. When does shift to right occurs? Let us understand. Shift to right means what? Shift to right means how much saturation? Tell me. If I take it like this, friends, saturation has decreased. That means shift to right means it is dissociation. It is a dissociation of oxygen from hemoglobin. Question comes, when does this occurs? When dissociation of oxygen from hemoglobin occurs? I will tell you when. And before that, let us understand what is the meaning of shift to left side. Shift to left side means it's an association. It's an association of oxygen with the hemoglobin, Hb. Is the matter clear? Dissociation, association. Clear? Now listen all of you here. And what is that? Association occurs when? Association means binding of oxygen to the hemoglobin. This occurs in the region of the lungs. I can tell it occurs in the alveoli. Right or wrong? Then where does dissociation occurs? It occurs in tissue level. In the tissue level, dissociation occurs. That we have understood now. Now let us see what is the conditions required for association. Conditions for association. Let us understand conditions for dissociation. The conditions are partial pressure of the oxygen should be more. You tell me, when you compare to tissue in alveoli, what is the partial pressure of oxygen? It is 104 mmHg. That means it's high. Then partial pressure of carbon dioxide should be low. Yes, it is low only. Okay, 40 mmHg. Then very important, temperature should be low. You tell me who contributes for body temperature? It's a blood. Please remember. And H plus ion concentration. H plus ion concentration should be less. Whenever the H plus ion concentration is less, then pH will be more. That means you tell me what are the conditions required for formation of oxyhemoglobin or association of the oxygen with the hemoglobin occurs in lungs. When PO2 is more, PCO2 is less, temperature is less, H plus ion is less. Clear? Things are going to be opposite here. And what is that? You tell me. Very easy. In the tissue region, oxygen level is less. Agree? That means I'll write here now. PO2 is less. Remaining everything is more. And what is that? PCO2 is more. Next, temperature is also more. H plus ion concentration is more. And whenever H plus ion concentration, if it is more, you tell me pH will be, H plus ion concentration is more, that is pH will be less. pH less means acidic. pH more means basic. Hope the matter very clear. This is a very important thing which we have shown here. Entire board I have used. Mark it very, very important. VIMP, oxygen dissociation curve, shift towards left side, shift towards right side. Hope the matter very clear. Now I add one more point for you. What is that? Concentrate here. Let me use another color for you. Dissociation of the oxygen from the hemoglobin means oxygen will be given to tissue. Clear? That effect occurs when PCO2 is more, temperature is more, H plus is more, and that effect of dissociation of oxygen from the hemoglobin occurs when PCO2 is more. It's called as Bohr's effect. What effect now? Bohr's effect. Please remember this one. What is Bohr's effect? It's a dissociation of the oxygen from the hemoglobin whenever PCO2 is more. Clear? Bohr's effect it's called as. Similarly, dissociation of carbon dioxide, association of oxygen, see now, association of oxygen with the hemoglobin occurs. At the same time, dissociation of carbon dioxide also occurs, right? Means give carbon dioxide, take oxygen. It occurs in which level? Lungs level, and that concept is called as Haldane effect. Haldane effect. Clear? Haldane effect, Bohr's effect. That means dissociation of oxygen from the hemoglobin is called Bohr's effect. Dissociation of carbon dioxide and association of oxygen is called as Haldane effect. Is the matter very clear? And very easy to remember also. How? Is the graph is moving up here towards y axis? If a graph is moving up means association, height is increasing, high, h for Haldane effect. Similarly, is the graph is bending down? If the graph is bending down, it is a dissociation, bending down. B, it is a Bohr's effect. Of the matter very clear. To sum up once again quickly, when we plot the partial pressure of oxygen against, means when you plot the percentage saturation of oxygen with the hemoglobin against partial pressure of oxygen, we get a sigmoid curve, S-shaped curve. Clear? Next point comes, what are the if the graph is shifting towards the left side, the graph is shifting left side, that is called association of oxygen with the hemoglobin to form oxyhemoglobin that occurs in lungs in these conditions, where you remember partial pressure of oxygen is more, rest all are less except pH. If it is shifting towards lower side, means right side, means dissociation, removal of the oxygen to tissues, and that occurs when partial pressure is low, rest all are more except pH. pH depends on the H plus ion concentration. When H plus ion concentration is more, pH is less, less means acidic, more means basic. If a graph is bending down, Bohr's effect. If a graph is moving up, it is a Haldane effect. Haldane effect means removal of carbon dioxide, and Bohr's effect means removal of oxygen. Bohr's effect occurs near to tissue, Haldane effect occurs near to the lungs level. I will give one work to you. Write the difference between Bohr's effect and Haldane effect. One work to you. You can refer the study material also. Second work, what is the conditions required for association, dissociation, tabulate that and learn and come for the next class. Hope the matter is very clear for you regarding the oxygen dissociation curve. Yes, all of you see here, 100 ml of oxygenated blood can deliver 5 ml of oxygen to the tissue. What is the meaning of it? All of you see here. 100 ml of blood, 100 ml of blood may have 12 to 16 grams of the hemoglobin. 12 to 16 grams of what? Hemoglobin. Now, 1 gram of hemoglobin can nearly carry 1.34 ml of oxygen. These two values to remember. 1 gram of hemoglobin can nearly carry 1.34 ml of oxygen. So, approximately you can get around 20 ml of oxygen is carried by 100 ml of blood. And which blood? Tell me, oxy blood. This is the value. Is the matter clear? So, I will repeat once again. Imagine that the hemoglobin, which is 12 to 16 grams of hemoglobin, 100 ml of blood, is carrying 20 ml of oxygen. 100 ml of the blood is carrying 20 ml of oxygen. Now, it is going to tissue now and giving, yes, it is giving 5 ml, 10 ml, 15 ml, 20 ml. Is it like that? If it gives everything, that's nothing is left out. And how much it is giving? See here. A 100 ml of oxyl blood having 20 ml of the oxygen, it gives 5 ml to tissue. Then remaining 15 is kept with the blood itself. Why? See here. A tissue is working more, means a muscle. The person is involved in 100-meter race, like a Usain Bolt, 100-meter race. Contracting, contracting, contracting. That means 5 ml of oxygen is not enough to break the glucose. In that strenuous condition, it can give 5 ml, 10 ml, 15 ml. 15 ml of the oxygen can be given to tissue. Is the matter very clear? That means in a strenuous condition, it can give even up to 15 ml of oxygen. But generally, 100 ml of the oxy blood can deliver means give 5 ml of oxygen to tissue. But how much it carries? It carries 20 ml of oxygen in 100 ml of the blood. Now you might have understood that why the deoxy blood also contains the oxygen, and why it is there. In the urgent condition, like a person is drowning down in the water and he is unable to take the oxygen, then this whatever the oxygen present in the deoxy blood can save his life. That means it is a reserve amount of oxygen present in the deoxy blood which can be taken in the urgent condition. One thing. Second point, if a person is going to the hypoxia condition, high altitude, then also this urgent condition, then also the amount of oxygen removed by the hemoglobin given to tissue will increase. It is not 5 ml, it is more than 5 ml, maybe up to 10 or 15 ml. That means this is called regulation, changing for better healthy life. Hope the matter is very clear for you. So, these values whatever I have given here, it is important for competitive exam, please remember. Yes, now we are moving on to the transport of carbon dioxide. How it is transported? See here. It is transported in 3 ways. One is in carbamino hemoglobin, 20 to 25% carbamino hemoglobin. And what is the meaning of it? I will tell you. See here now. Carbon dioxide reacts with the amino group, free amino group of the hemoglobin. Free amino group, we tell NH3 group, NH3 group or NH2 group we can tell here. Okay. If you connect here NH2 group, because 3 bonds are over for nitrogen valency. See here now. How a hemoglobin can have NH2 group? You tell me. Hemoglobin, a globin is a protein part which contains amino acids. These amino acids are made up of amino group and carboxylic acid group, right? And that free amino group I was discussing regarding. Okay. So, the carbon dioxide reacts with the hemoglobins, what group? Free amino group, free amino group of the hemoglobin, and to become carb amino hemoglobin, carbamino hemoglobin, and that is what is happening. And this carbamino hemoglobin formation takes place where? You tell me. It takes place in tissue level. Is it a reversible process? Yes, it can occur reversible in the lungs level. Is the matter clear? So, it forms carbamino hemoglobin in the tissue level. It once again forms CO2 and Hb in the lungs level. That is, binding is once again reversible. But is there any irreversible binding? Yes. There is something called as carbon monoxide, CO2, carbon monoxide, which is not properly burnt gases will have carbon monoxide, maybe like a vehicular exhaust, industries, or the burning mosquito coil will have carbon monoxide. This carbon monoxide has 250 times more affinity for hemoglobin, means the hemoglobin has more affinity. How much more? 250 times more affinity for carbon monoxide than oxygen. Clear? That is the reason when you inhale this carbon monoxide, the hemoglobin preferably binds with the carbon monoxide and oxygen transport will decrease. It is called carbon monoxide poisoning. That happens in the case of smokers also, tobacco smokers, please remember, and that binding is irreversible. So, this binding is reversible. So, carbamino hemoglobin, how much it is? 20 to 25% is carbamino hemoglobin, 7% in blood plasma in the dissolved stage, and remaining in the bicarbonate stage. Here you should remember the values, because now we are concentrating regarding this. What is the meaning of bicarbonate stage? This is a very important one. Shall we start that? Concentrate here. See, all of you, what happens? This is the alveoli. It's alveoli. Okay, and here is a tissue. Alveoli, tissue. Okay. Now, in the alveoli, there is oxygen. Clear? And there is a carbon dioxide. Now, we'll think about carbon a little later. Okay, and here is a blood vessel. Now, think that here is a blood vessel. Blood vessel it is. Okay, you can make it a little different way. Let me take it like this for your easy understanding. Okay, but don't think that tissue is entering into blood vessel. Don't think like that. Okay, fine. Here is the hemoglobin inside the RBC. It's a RBC, red blood corpuscle. So what I will do, let me make it a little larger than this, because I have to draw so many things inside that RBC. I need to draw one more RBC here also, near to the tissue. This tissue here. Okay, I can erase here. Tissue. Okay, fine, everything is fine now. So, it is once again RBC, red blood corpuscle, RBC, red blood cell or red blood corpuscle. Now, all of you see here. Now, see the tissue here. Inside the tissue, C6H12O6 is, in the presence of oxygen, is broken down into CO2 plus H2O, and you get adenosine triphosphate ATP as energy. So, I am writing that CO2 here, carbon dioxide, I am writing. This carbon dioxide will enter from the tissue to here. Here means where? Tissue fluid, also called interstitial fluid, if you remember I told you. So, it is here now. From the interstitial fluid, it is entering into RBC. So, what has entered? The carbon dioxide has entered the RBC. Inside the RBC, carbon dioxide reacts with the water H2O, okay, and it forms a chemical called as H2CO3. And what is this H2CO3? Carbonic acid. Carbonic acid. I will write this equation little later once again there. The carbonic acid will dissociate into H plus and HCO3 minus. Same equation I will write there. Okay, see here now. The carbon dioxide reacts with the water to form H2CO3. And H2CO3 is a carbonic acid. Carbonic acid. The carbonic acid will dissociate into H plus and HCO3 minus. Clear? And for this reaction to occur, there is a requirement of an enzyme here. And which is the enzyme? The enzyme required here is called as carbonic anhydrase. Carbonic anhydrase. The enzyme required here. The same enzyme will catalyze this reaction also. So, I will write carbonic anhydrase. Is the matter clear? Okay. So, that is what has occurred here. H plus and HCO3 has formed. And this is occurring in which level? Tissue level. And you know that in tissue level, partial pressure of carbon dioxide is more. To form this reaction, this has to be there, and partial pressure of oxygen is less. Hope everything is fine. Now, what happens? The HCO3 minus is there, right? It will come out of the RBC. It comes out of the RBC. Which one? HCO3 minus. But if HCO3 minus has to go out to the RBC, something has to come inside. Clear? It is called antiport. What port? Antiport. Antiport. And what is antiport? Something is coming inside, something is going outside. Here also same way. When HCO3 is going outside, and what is HCO3? I did not tell. HCO3 means bicarbonate. Bicarbonate. Okay. When HCO3 bicarbonate is going outside, something is coming inside, told you, and what is it coming inside? It is a chloride. It's a chloride ion, Cl minus. So, Cl minus is coming inside, HCO3 is going outside. And this phenomenon occurring in tissue level, where chlorine is moving inside and HCO3 is going outside, it is called as Hamburger's phenomenon. Hamburger's phenomenon, which is also called as OR. It is also called as chloride shift. What shift? Chloride shift. And what is Hamburger's phenomenon or chloride shift? Where in the tissue level, the bicarbonate is going outside, formed inside RBC, and chlorine is coming inside. So, inside the RBC, amount of chlorine is more now. With this, we understood that HCO3 is added to blood plasma. Clear? Is the matter clear? When HCO3 is going outside, chlorine has come inside. Now, what happens? This HCO3 is moving from the tissue, moving and going near to alveoli. Near to alveoli, as you know, near to alveoli, where PO2 is more and PCO2 is less, if you remember. So, what happens? The HCO3 will once again come into the RBCs, all right. HCO3 minus comes inside to the RBC and it reacts with the H plus hydrogen to form H2CO3, means bicarbonate, and it's not bicarbonate, it's a carbonic acid. So, bicarbonate reacts with the hydrogen to form carbonic acid. This carbonic acid will dissociate into CO2 and H plus. CO2 and H plus. Is the matter very clear? Then you may ask, so when HCO3 is going inside, is a chloride is coming outside? Yes, chloride will come outside here. Clear? So, HCO3 will go outside, chloride will come inside. I will write here HCO3 minus bicarbonate. Now, this carbon dioxide will come into the tissue's fluid, means interstitial space, and from there carbon dioxide will go to the alveoli, and from there it goes out of the lungs. Clear? Since we are not concentrating only regarding the carbon, let me erase the oxygen here. So, come back to this equation later after discussing here. That means, this forward reaction which is occurring in the tissue region once again gets reversed, where H plus and HCO3 will react to become bicarbonate, carbonic acid will dissociate into CO2 plus H2O, and the CO2 is given to alveoli and goes back to atmosphere. That means, the enzyme called as carbonic anhydrase, a fastest enzyme in the world, carbonic anhydrase, which forms carbonic acid and then forms bicarbonate, is reversible reactions. Is the matter clear? Hope you have understood, but let me once again explain this. So, what happens in tissue level? You tell me. In the tissue level, the glucose is broken down to release carbon dioxide. This carbon dioxide comes out of the tissue fluid region, enters into RBC, reacts with the water to form bicarbonate to form carbonic acid in the presence of carbonic anhydrase. This carbonic acid dissociate into H plus and bicarbonate. This bicarbonate will come out of the RBC and takes the Cl minus. It's a chloride shift, also called Hamburger's phenomenon. Now, this bicarbonate has formed where now? It has formed in the tissue region. Imagine that, repeat, foot region. From the foot region, it has to come above through the blood. It comes above to the blood and comes to the lungs now. In the lungs, here, in the lungs, bicarbonate will once again enters into the RBC. Bicarbonate reacts with the H plus to form H2CO3, carbonic acid. Carbonic once again splits to form CO2 plus H plus. CO2 will come out of the RBC, goes into the alveoli and goes back to the atmosphere. And how much percentage of the HCO3 is transported? It is 70% of the HCO3, means bicarbonate, is transported to the blood. Is the matter very clear? And you should remember regarding Hamburger's phenomenon, also a chloride shift here, and formation of carbonic acid and bicarbonate, it occurs in tissue level where conditions are like this, and dissociation requires conditions like this. Now, you tell me, in this condition, is it a Bohr's effect or Haldane's effect? It is a Bohr's effect. Clear? What about this one? Haldane effect. Is the matter clear? Because Haldane effect occurs near to tissue level, near to alveoli level, H, Haldane effect, and Bohr's effect occurs near to the tissue level. Hope you have understood regarding Haldane effect and Bohr's effect. So, this was regarding transport of the carbon dioxide in three ways: carbaminohemoglobin, and 7% in the blood plasma, 70% in the bicarbonate, and how the bicarbonate was formed we have explained with the help of picture here. Okay. The same phenomenon I will explain once again with the help of another diagram, but you should remember that in exam this diagram is not required because textbook has not given the diagram. Then why the diagram is required? For understanding a concept the diagram is required, and you have already drawn it and remember it also. Yes, this is the picture. All of you see here what is happening. Tissue, tissue, tissue. Tissue undergoes metabolism to form carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide comes to the interstitial space. From there enters into the blood. From there it enters into the RBC. Inside RBC, carbon dioxide reacts with the water to form carbonic acid H2CO3 in the presence of enzyme carbonic anhydrase. Then it dissociates into HCO3 means bicarbonate plus H plus, and HCO3 come outside, chloride goes inside, Hamburger's phenomenon. Then HCO3 will transport in the blood. When it comes to near to alveoli, where HCO3 will enter, chloride ion will come outside. HCO3 reacts to the H plus to form carbonic acid in the presence of same enzyme carbonic anhydrase and form CO2 and H2O, reversible reaction. CO2 goes into the blood and interstitial space and goes into the alveoli, goes out of the alveoli back to the atmosphere. Transport of carbon dioxide 70% is in the form of bicarbonate. Okay. 100 ml of the, please remember, 100 ml of the deoxy blood. Please remember the 100 ml of the what me? Deoxy blood. I can make it here. Remove this. The 100 ml of the, I'll repeat once again. This has to be removed. DE make it. Okay. The 100 ml of deoxygenated blood can deliver 4 ml of, tell me what? Carbon dioxide. I'll repeat once again. We have corrected it. 100 ml of the deoxygenated blood can deliver 4 ml of the carbon dioxide. Okay. So this can be erased. I'll rewrite the sentence for you. Please don't have any confusion. A 100 ml of deoxy blood can deliver 4 ml of carbon dioxide. Please remember this. Okay. So with that we have finished regarding transport of carbon dioxide, and transport of oxygen is also over. We are into the last aspect here, and this is what? Tell me. This is regarding regulation of respiration. What is that? See here. And what does that mean, regulation? When we are in athletics, when we are involved in maybe a race, then breathing rate will increase after 100 ml race. If you just want to take rest, the breathing rate is already increased. Why the breathing rate has increased, you tell me? Because you require more oxygen to break more glucose. And who increases the breathing rate? That's very important. And when you take rest, once again breathing rate will decrease to the normal one. This is called regulation. Increasing the breathing rate, bringing to normal. This happens in our body with the help of nervous system, and that's what is learned under the regulation of respiration. Shall we begin now? All of you concentrate here. So I am going for the regulation of respiration, where the aspects are like this. See here, the regulation of respiration is by with the help of one brain, okay, and there is an involvement of some part of the blood vessels also, blood vessels, and which parts I will tell you now. See carefully here. In the brain, two parts are involved. The one part which is involved is called as pons region. We call it the pons varolii. You might have remember pons varolii. Okay. Second is called medulla region. Medulla oblongata. So if it is a brain here, then you find these portions, right? Okay, where this is the pons region and this is the medulla oblongata region. Medulla. Okay. Now, what does the pons has? What does the medulla has? Let me explain to you now. Pons region has a portion called as pneumotaxic center. The pons region has a region called as pneumotaxic center. And what is the function of it? I will tell later. It has a pneumotoxic center. Which one? Pons region. And what does the medulla region has? I will tell you. The medulla region has two important portions. The one is called as chemosensors. Second, it is called as respiratory. Let me erase this brain because you already noted down this. Respiratory rhythmic center. Okay. Functions of that I will tell you now. Pneumotoxic center will always decrease. It will decrease inspiration rate. It is involved in decreasing the inspiration rate. So, I can tell that it is involved in removal of carbon dioxide. It is a function of what? Tell me now? Pneumotoxic center. Chemosensors, they detect what? Carbon dioxide level and H plus level in the blood. Clear? So, they detect carbon dioxide and H plus level in the blood. Who? Chemosensors. Please remember all these aspects initially, then we will discuss more about that. What is the function? Respiratory rhythmic center. They either increase or decrease the breathing rate. They either increase or decrease the breathing rate as per what? As per pons guidance. That means who is the superior? It is a pons who is superior, which will guide the respiratory rhythmic center, and respiratory rhythmic center can increase or decrease the breathing rate as per the guidance of the pons region. Hope the matter is very clear. Hope you have noted down all these points. I can just briefly once again tell. Oh, blood vessels I forgot to tell. Blood vessels. In the blood vessels, there are two blood vessels we should remember. One is called as aorta. Aorta, we tell aorta also. It's a blood, it's a heart, and you know it's a right side, it's a left side. From the left side, from the left ventricle, a artery goes like this, and this artery we call it as aorta only. Clear? And this aorta, from the aorta we find some blood vessels coming out here. We will discuss this aspect in detail next chapter, because next chapter is regarding circulation itself. Okay, and these blood vessels are called as carotid artery. What do you know? Carotid artery. And what is the function of carotid artery? It supplies blood into the head portion and the arm portion. Okay, please remember carotid artery. Now, it's aorta here. So, aorta and carotid artery. So, it is supplying blood into the head portion. Which one? Carotid artery. Aorta supply blood into the other portion of the body, because it is very important. Is a proper amount of the oxygen is supplied to the head or to different part of the body, to the arms, it is controlled by these two blood vessels. So, the blood vessels, aorta and carotid artery, what they have? They have these two portions. They have what? They have chemoreceptors. They have chemoreceptors which can sense level of CO2 and level of H plus. That means, in the regulation of the respiration, level of CO2, level of H plus is detected, but not level of oxygen. That is the reason, for example, a question asked in NEET exam, when we close the nostril, not breathing, then what makes urge of breathing? Means you want to breathe out. What makes urge of breathing? Is it a decrease in the oxygen level, or is it an increase in the CO2 level? You tell me. It is an increase in the CO2 level, not decrease in the O2 level, because in our body we do not have a chemoreceptor which can detect level of oxygen. It has, there is a chemoreceptor which can detect the level of CO2, not the oxygen. Clear? First point is very clear for you. That means detection of the CO2 level is done in the case of blood vessels. Then you ask, what about H plus, sir? You know that, student, reaction. You know the reaction where CO2 students, which reacts with the water to form H2CO3, and it will dissociate into H plus and HCO3 minus. That means whenever CO2 is more, H plus also will be more. That means presence of the H plus is an indication that CO2 is more. Very important point. Okay, hope you are noted down. I will be explaining the same concept with the help of another diagram now. Yes. See here, as we told, here is the heart, chambers, aorta, and here is the arteries, here. Okay. And what is the name we told for this? Tell me. This artery is called as carotid artery. Carotid artery. And tell me, what is this one? It's a aorta. Okay. Now, this carotid artery and aorta, both of them, if I little bit extend here further, they have some regions which can detect the level of H plus and CO2, and these are called as chemoreceptors. Chemoreceptors which can detect level of CO2 and H plus. Hope the matter clear. I told you the level of oxygen is not detected, that means role of oxygen in the regulation of respiration is insignificant. Next point. Then we will take this portion called as brain. And in the brain, we are taking these two important parts. And what does that tell me what? This portion is called as pons. I can better if I write this pons region another side here. Yes, I'll write here. This is called pons and this is called as medulla. Keep writing along with me, students. Keep speaking to me. Okay. Now, pons region, as I told you, pons region has a center called as, tell me what, it's called as pneumotaxic center. Pneumotaxic center. Here comes the medulla region. It has two portions. It has two portions. Medulla region has two portions. And tell me what is that? One region here, it's called as, tell me what? It's called as respiratory rhythmic center. Respiratory rhythmic center. Okay, and another portion here called as another portion here. Another portion here it's called as this one. It's called as chemosensors. Chemosensors. Hope the diagram is very clear for you. Same thing we had discussed earlier also. Carotid artery, aorta, which has chemoreceptors. Medulla region has chemosensors and respiratory rhythmic center. Pons region has pneumotaxic center. Pons is above, medulla is below. Hope the matter is clear. Now, all of you see next point. What is that? These two chemoreceptors are connected. They are connected to the chemosensors. They are connected to chemosensors with the help of neurons. Okay. Now what happens? All of you see carefully here. Whenever the level of CO2 and H plus is increasing, because whenever the CO2 increases, H plus will anyways increases, because the CO3 will dissociate to form H plus. Whenever the whenever the CO2 and H plus is increasing, that level, that message will be sent by this neuron to the chemosensors. So, chemosensor will understand that, yeah, CO2 and H plus has increased. Then you may ask, sir, is there any blood supply into the brain? Because the chemosensor is present in the medulla. Medulla is a portion of the brain. Yes, blood supply is there to brain. But one point I just want to mention, CO2 cannot enter into the brain tissue, will not enter to brain tissue. There is a barrier which prevents entry of CO2 into brain tissue, because brain tissues are very sensitive. If a CO2 level is increasing in the brain tissue, then conditions becomes worse. Clear? So, then how to detect it? H plus will enter. That means a barrier which is called as blood-brain barrier. Blood-brain barrier which will allow H plus to enter, but not CO2 to enter. But it is enough, right? Because H plus will form only when CO2 is formed. Please remember. So, H plus is entering into brain, into the cerebrospinal fluid of the brain. That H plus ion, when it is increasing, then the chemosensors have understood that, oh, CO2 has increased. Okay. That message from the chemosensors will be given to the tell me what, pneumotaxic center. So, pneumotaxic center understood that, oh, H plus ion has increased, that means CO2 ion has increased, CO2 has increased. Then pneumotaxic center will send, means will guide the whom? Will guide the respiratory rhythmic center. That means pneumotaxic center will guide the respiratory rhythmic center by what? Now it is time to decrease the inspiration, increase the expiration. Increase expiration, remove more CO2, and because of that, CO2 level in the blood will decrease. That means, please remember, pneumotaxic center will decrease the inspiration rate. That is very important point, very important. It is there in your exemplar book also, in your level 1 book also. Hope the matter very clear. I will repeat once again. See here now, whenever the level of CO2 and H plus is increasing in the blood, the chemoreceptors will detect it. That information is from the neurons, it is given to the chemosensors present in the medulla region, preferably H plus. Why not CO2? I told you, blood-brain barrier is there. This H plus which is increased, detected by chemosensors, the message goes from the chemosensor to the pneumotaxic center of the brain. Pneumotaxic center gives the command to whom? Respiratory rhythmic center, to tell that now the time increase the expiration, decrease inspiration, so that CO2 level in the blood has to decrease. When the CO2 level of the blood is decreased, then what happens? Everything is normal, the things will once again change. Is the matter once again, is the matter very clear for you? Okay. So, I have not told anything regarding one more center present in the brain, which is required only for competitive exam. Just I will mention now. Pons region has one more region called as apneistic center. Apneistic center. Apneistic center. Apneistic center is opposite to pneumotaxic center. Pneumotaxic center is increasing the expiration, decreasing the inspiration. Apneistic, you tell me, it is increasing the inspiration, decreasing the expiration. Please remember that one more center called apneistic center present in the case of what will be Pons region. Hope the matter is very clear. Take this picture for your understanding, connect this like this, connect this to like this, connect from the chemosensor to the pneumotaxic center to the respiratory rhythmic center, then read through properly textbook, understand that. Once again, I will write finally one word, the level of oxygen, the level of oxygen is insignificant in regulation of respiration. This is a very important point you should remember. Level of oxygen is insignificant in regulating the respiration. That means what is level of? Level of CO2 is important for regulating the respiration. Okay. Hope the matter is very clear for you. After this aspect, friends, we are into almost coming to the end of this chapter. Now we will be discussing regarding disorders of respiratory system one by one. Several disorders we will study. In that, first we will take regarding asthma. What is asthma? Asthma is a difficulty in breathing. Breathing becomes difficult. Difficulty in breathing causing wheezing. Causing wheezing. Reason, wheezing due to inflammation of bronchi and bronchiole. That much you remember. What is the meaning? All of you see carefully. Trachea, you know, incomplete rings. It gets branched, fifth thoracic vertebrae to form, tell me what, tell me, bronchi. It's a bronchi, you know it, bronchi. Okay, and gets branched, once again branched. Okay, later it forms bronchiole. Bronchiole. Okay, so this bronchi and bronchiole, these two, the bronchi and bronchiole gets inflamed. Inflamed. And what does it mean inflamed? It is swollen. It is swollen. And you may ask, what is the reason for this swelling? Reason for swelling is a chemical. And the chemical is called as histamine. What is histamine? The reason for this is a histamine. And who forms the histamine? There is a cell called mast cell. I don't know, you might have heard. Yes, you have heard a mast cell present in connective tissue, areolar connective tissue. A type of loose connective tissue called areolar connective tissue, which you have studied, which contains mast cell. The mast cell forms the histamine, and histamine is responsible for inflammation. Inflammation leads to swelling, and because of the swelling, it leads to because of swelling that leads to wheezing. What is wheezing? A stethoscope. When the doctor uses stethoscope, he keeps here to understand the heartbeat, but he sometimes keeps here. Yes, he keeps it there. Why? To understand is there a sound during breathing. You might have just, if you keep the ear very close to the back region of that person who has asthma, you might have heard a sound called as wheezing. Wheezing means difficulty in breathing. The difficulty in breathing is because inflammation of bronchi and bronchiole. Reason for inflammation is a histamine produced by mast cell. This is called as asthma. To decrease this inflammation, sometimes they use nasal spray where this gets dilated. They find comfortable for breathing. Asthma, you might have heard, there are many reasons for asthma. The asthma can be even hereditary also, but people can live along with the asthma provided if they take required precautions. Hope you understood regarding the disorder called as asthma. Still many disorders we have to learn. The next disorder which we will be learning, it is going to be here. What is that? Emphysema. And what is emphysema? All of you see here. This is the alveoli, right? Has a squamous epithelial cells, single cell thickness. Okay. Imagine that a person is continuously smoking. He is a chronic smoker, means continuously smoking. Because of that, many chemicals will be aggregating in the alveoli region. You might have seen one advertisement where people will squeeze their lungs. It may be exaggeration, but the things it is given like this. So, this is the chemical which is present in the tobacco smoke. Tobacco smoke it is, okay. And this tobacco smoke whichever present on the squamous epithelium will damage the squamous epithelium. So, that means the alveoli, the alveolar surface, it is damaged. Whenever the alveolar surface is damaged, then respiratory membrane got damaged. When a respiratory membrane got damaged, then exchange of gases will not occur properly, and that is what is called emphysema. And what is emphysema? Emphysema is a chronic disorder. Chronic means long term. Long term. Okay. It's a chronic disorder in which alveolar walls are damaged, due to which respiratory surface is decreased, and what is one of the major reason cause for this is the cigarette smoking. Is the matter very clear for you? What is emphysema? A chronic disorder, long-term disorder where alveolar wall gets damaged. Because of that, respiratory surface gets decreased, exchange becomes difficult. Reason is cigarette smoking. Very important one, emphysema. And emphysema and asthma, two disorders we have learnt in today's class. We will be learning remaining disorders in the next class, next session, and along with that we will be even discussing the AICE level 1 questions. I suggest all the students to go through the from exam for exam question and AICE level 1 questions, all of you go through, start solving, because in the next session we will be discussing that, but you get prepared and come. Let us meet in the next class. Thank you.